Right folks, welcome to this exciting video where you once again join me in the wild landscape of Scotland. And today we've come to the edge of Montrose, a similar area to where I was a few weeks ago, or not even a few weeks ago, a few videos ago in the episode where I started off at the big viaduct. We're in a similar area today and I'm just out for a spontaneous walk, and I just love walking in this area near the old World War II Montrose aerodrome. And there's so much little nuggets of history hidden as you walk on these paths. You just see so much, and I just thought it'd be cool to put the camera on today and do a wee video seeing what we see when we're out on this cool adventure. And this is actually the Kinnaber area on the edge of Montrose in Angus, Scotland. This must have been one of the original tracks going to some of the old fishery houses at the side of the sea here. The wild North Sea is probably like not even a mile across that direction. There is a bit of wind today, but it's amazing just to see this old landscape here. This is pretty much sand dunes. If you dug down, it's just like sandy ground with like pebbles in between it. But there's a cool building along here. I might actually go in and explore it. It's actually a Cold War microwave listening station, and it was related to RAF Edsel, and it was also obviously related to the whole Royal Air Force, but also an interesting thing, it was actually US Air Force as well, which were controlling this place. I have visited here a few times over the years, but it's often cool just to go back after a long period and see what remains of history. You never know what else we'll see on this adventure. Sometimes you find things that you've never seen before. I remember years ago, this used to be one of my favourite paths to walk the dog back in the day when I had the dog, so it's cool to see how the landscape's even changed from that time. So if I had gone most places today, it was just super rainy, and even like a couple of miles further over that way inland, it's just proper like heavy rain, and now and again I can feel it spittering down through the wind. And that's how I'm just thinking, like, it's cool to go to a building with a roof or whatever. This building here, I think, is watertight at least, so we can see some history without getting soaked. But potentially the rain might go a different direction and it could be a decent day here. Hopefully we're just going to get the edge of this storm. So check it out folks, Cold War Britain. This cement strip you can see leading on in front of us is the original access road to this old listening station here, and it's just incredible to see how the nature's taken back over. Even the cement road, which at one time was pretty wide, is now just becoming a thin footpath, and even then it's pretty much fully covered in places. That's because of the movement of these sand dunes here. Obviously with the wind and the wild weather here on the coast, the landscape's always changing and shifting. And I think the cement was put in because obviously it's quite unstable land here. Even some areas of this is boggy. But I just love exploring places like this folks, and just thinking about the history, the soldiers and stuff that was stationed here. I remember one time I was here before, one of the soldiers that was stationed here got in the comments and gave us some interesting information, and it was that gentleman that actually told us that this place was linked with like RAF at Edsel airfield and things like that. So you can just imagine this when it was a thriving site. Probably if you were walking up here, there would be guards or whatever getting pretty curious as to why you were walking so near the site. Another interesting detail, it used to have a massive mast there, and the guy ropes for the mast have actually got their own individual fences around them to protect them, and it's like that was the level of defence they went to. These fences were pretty much unbreachable originally back in the day. Just look at this sandy ground here folks. It's the beautiful white sand of Montrose, or it's probably more like golden sand. But yeah, these wee paths and stuff are just dotted all over this, and then you see the remains of the cement now and again. Check it out folks, look at the character of that. the insane old building with the grass and stuff like pretty much growing out of the gutters. It's so cool to see. I'm wanting to go around here and try and get a better picture through the fence. Look at this angle here. This is incredible to see. Wow, the years that pass. Look how overgrown things are at this time of year. You can imagine the mast there standing at the far side of the compound at that end of the building, and then you can see the individual fence lines where the guy ropes and stuff would have been supporting the mast. Probably with the mad coastal winds, it probably had a lot of force on it and they needed those big guy ropes. But it's interesting to see the level of the fence, the way they fenced it all off. And another interesting thing, these fences have got massive thick earth straps on them, grounding them to earth, so there was no interference with the electrical signals that they were trying to pick up or even produce here and send out. And just look at this, here's the remains of these massive earth straps, check that out. Look at that there, folks. The amount of current and stuff like that that we're using here as well for the signals, the strength of the signals. They actually had their own substation here, which was unique to this site. They were creating all the power they needed to power their mast and power everything here at the site. So check this out, folks. Here's another little earth wire contraption here, connecting the fence down to ground. And that wire runs right up and links each of the barbed wire segments together. And it's incredible to see that level of work and level of detail. And the sort of signals they were dealing with here were so powerful, but they wanted such an accuracy. And I think there was a few of these sites like dotted over the country, but this one's obviously pretty interesting because you can get inside it. I think there's a wee hole in the fence along here, and even though I've been here before, it's amazing how you always notice new things each time you visit somewhere. And exploring these old buildings and telling the story of the Cold War defence of the country and the whole western world, places like this were crucial, key little areas in the land. Look at it from this angle, folks. So check this out here, folks. Because these rabbits or animals have been burrowing under the wall, we're really getting an idea of how far down that cement goes, and I can see it's literally like 1.5 feet to the bottom. So it's interesting because I always wondered, like, how deep would they have put that down into the ground to prevent people feel like digging under and stealing the national secrets here. Probably the latest of technologies was used in a building like this for, like, obviously all the electronic equipment and stuff like that. It was the latest of technology. And here we can see within this fence compound, look at this. Here's one of the original guy rope mounts here, which is obviously deep into the ground on another plinth. And it's mad just to think about the size of the mast. When you see that, the cable would have led on up, and the mast was just inside the main compound there, leading up. Massive big tall thing. So this is mad, folks. I just looked, and the usual area that I come into this property in has actually been re-fenced here with new bolts, which is actually a good thing because it prevents vandalism and it prevents this area decaying any more. But the bad news is, it looks like there's no way actually for us to get into the compound. That's sometimes how it is on these adventures. And most recently when I've come here, we were able to actually explore in depth. But like, it does show that somebody is still caring for the property. It's just a shame that they hadn't done that like before it got so damaged, because when I first came to this place, all the doors and stuff were still on and the windows and stuff were in such great condition. But yeah, it's the Kinnaber listening station, folks. I'm just going to take a scout around the rest of this fence and see if there's any other way in, but if not, the adventure's not over. It's so cool often just to be spontaneous like this, and if something like that's not available, we just keep on going and finding different things that we've never seen before. Yeah, so that is just mad that that place is actually sealed up now like that. I probably could actually climb over the fence, but when you see how defensive it is, it's almost not worth it. Because on this channel we don't like breaching to try and get into places. We only explore things if they're open and available to be viewed. And it is cool to once again walk past here on this adventure, tell the story of this Cold War building right here. Check it out, folks. Absolute madness. I just love the character of those buildings and stuff. When they start decaying like that and years pass, it's just mad how nature takes back over. Anyway, let's head on across. I'm actually wanting to go and take a look at this. So check it out, folks. This area here is where I theorised they must have dumped something at a certain time, because no grass grows here at all. It's like there's been some sort of aircraft fuel or whatever dumped, or who would even know what it's been. But for sure it's like this area here, nothing grows on it apart from that mossy lichen and that heather. Just check out, the bees are quite happy today, going around foraging there, getting the pollen. Check it out, folks, that's the real nature of Scotland right there. So this mission's still on, folks. Since we didn't get into that little house there, or that little abandoned listening station, we're going to fire on here and go a different direction. I think last time I walked around here, I actually went right up that way and round. So today I'm just thinking I'm going to try and head maybe up this path here. Look at this area, there's definitely been something going on here back at the Cold War times. This whole area has been used ever since like World War I. They've used this area of Montrose for military activities and operations, and they used to even test some of the earliest forms of radar on this area. But this here looks like some sort of Cold War device, maybe a secondary aerial or a repeater mast had been in this area. Check it out, there's this massive chunk sticking out of the ground. Wonder what it's been. Some sort of mad like bracket or something like that, maybe holding up some mast. I don't even know what direction it's been, but it's almost like there's been something down below the ground level here. Look at this, folks, look what the ground's made of here. It's that proper licheny stuff. Whoa, look, there's a grasshopper right in the centre of the frame right there, folks. Little grasshopper. I could probably get him to jump. Whoa, he's away, he's fiery. He's proper fiery. Whoa, there's some proper creatures here. I don't even know how well those little animals come out on the camera. But yeah, they're just out here. This is like thriving natural wilderness. And I can't believe how deep this lichen is here. It's like we're walking about on a sponge. Whoa, it's slippy. What a strange surface we're on right now, folks. Check it out, folks, I've now taken a different road, basically away from the beach. I came through a wee gate there and I've come out onto kind of like a farm track, and I was just loving the character of these old buildings here. Yeah, I'm just basically on a spontaneous adventure. I don't know how I get into these adventures, folks. It looks like this road here's taking me out onto the main road. Wow. Guess what, folks, a few videos ago I actually spotted an old ducat. And I think I've just re-spotted it here out on this field at the other side. The only unfortunate thing is there's cows in that field. What a view looking up the coast from here, folks. Check this out. So check this out, folks. I've now come out onto this road and it's just such a paradise spot. It's a nice cool breeze coming down here, but I do apologise for any wind in the audio at this point. This little road though, it's just paradise out here, I must say. And look, that's the wee building. I could see a few videos ago, I looked over from a distance and could see a wee white building I thought was a ducat. And that's actually over in the middle of the field here, so it's cool to get a closer look. It must be potentially not even a ducat, it was maybe even just a wee shed or a barn related to the old agriculture or farms in this area. No way, look, there's wee cafes here down at the feeding trough. They've got no bale unfortunately there. They're probably hungry down there and then there's no bale for them. But they're cool little cafes. We'll love to see that on the channel, folks. Some Scottish coos. So check it out, folks, look at the character of that wee white building. It's been so well constructed, and I believe it's something to do with one of the local mansion houses. It's maybe even a spring there, and it could be a water pumping shed rather than a ducat. Because I believe it's not a ducat after seeing it, but then it could be because there's some sort of like openings under the roof line there. It could be a ducat, folks. It's interesting just to theorise the history, and when I notice new things, it just raises more questions of history, folks. But every estate did have a ducat. That one's just got a wee green door. But I have noticed all the openings. It's quite far away. I'm not wanting to go in the field because of the cow situation, obviously. But yeah, anyway, I'll update you further around here when it's less windy, folks. So after pondering that building's history, as I'm walking along and thinking about it, I believe now it is definitely a ducat, folks, and it's related to this big white mansion house which is at the side of the path. This is some big stately home of this area. It must be like Kinnaber House or whatever, or something along those lines. But it's a nice, beautiful big mansion house here, and for sure that will be the ducat related to it from back in the day. At that time, mansion houses needed to have ducats as a legal requirement so that the government could come and collect the pigeon's dung, because they used to use it in the navy as one of the ingredients in the early gunpowders back when they used to have cannons like firing out the side of the wooden ships. And it's just crazy history there of the British Empire, and these wee buildings on the countryside give away the clues of that and tell the story of that. So it is so interesting to see. Whoa, there's a ferret. There's literally, I think it was actually a polecat. Quite a big polecat, which is like the size of a ferret. It's like 1.5 feet long on there. Just literally running across. Probably didn't come out on the camera either too well, but yeah, the wildlife and nature that you see on these adventures is just mind-blowing. And it's crazy how I've come a wee bit further round and the wind's just less extreme. Another interesting thing with that ducat, it's amazing the different styles of ducat that I've seen over the years, like as I've explored different ones. And that one had an interesting way for the birds to go in just below the slate line on the facing board of the roof. It had little holes for the pigeons to go in and out. And then that was the only openings on the structure apart from the main man access door at the front. But it looks like it's in great condition, and probably inside it's still in its original condition, and it's likely to have stone compartments for the birds to sit in. Little pigeon boxes inside there made of stone. It'd be interesting to see that and document history. Maybe one day, if there's no cows in the field, we'll have to go back and have a wee look, see what remains of the ancient history here on the land. And what an adventure this has been. I've literally walked a fair distance around. First of all, telling the story of the history of the Cold War Microwave Station, and then leading on to where we are now, telling the story of the old British stately home and its ducat. I've just had an enjoyable walk along the way. It's cool often just to throw the camera on, make a wee video as we have these adventures. It's just crazy the things we see. Right folks, that's been a random little adventure. We've seen some interesting little things and a different little bit of landscape here in Scotland. But I'm going to end this one here. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with the next one, wherever I end up going.